gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Winging It F1 podcast. And we come to you on Breaking News Day, because not only is this our Japanese Grand Prix review episode, it is also our FIA cost cap review episode, where we review the review of the cost cap review from 2021 for Formula One. And there isn't much of the review to review. It is simply a statement on said review. But enough of that. Let's introduce my co-hosts for today, who will help me drudge, whatever the word is, through the quagmire of FIA regulation for the Japanese Grand Prix and for the cost cap. Nigel Chu and Adam Dickinson, hello. Are you feeling upbeat? Are you feeling buoyant because of the lovely world that is F1 regulation?
Well, going off our private, that's not private messenger conversations, we're feeling argumentative, and it's probably going to continue. So that's going to be
I like buoyant. Is like, do I feel like I float more than usual because of the cost cap? I don't. Is that the question in?
Jesus Christ!
It depends, because the 2021 championship isn't dead in the water like the Dead Sea, but is it the Red Sea or the Dead Sea you float in? I can't remember. So. It's a good joke.
If I had,
haha,
what's it? Is it 6 million? If I had 6 million in notes strapped around me, I would float more. I think
it could be under $7 million. We don't know how much under, and we don't know
if it
what it's been spent on. And we don't know if it was paid in cash.
I'll pay in cash.
All right, Nigel. You can fund us then. You can give us a cut of salary.
I am funding you.
It's a good point. Nigel pays my wages. But anyway, getting straight into it, where we talk about wages and all of that kind of gubbins. The FIA has confirmed its cost cap administration report for the 2021 season, and 7 teams received their compliance certificate today. Williams didn't get theirs because they handed in their original documents late. They've been fined for that. That's fine. Aston Martin didn't get their certificate because they have been found to do a procedural breach of the financial regulations, which just means they've basically done it wrong, but a fine at the end of the day. But they could still get a minor penalty, like a reprimand or a fine or a sporting penalty. Oracle Red Bull Racing is considered to be in procedural and minor overspend breaches of financial regulations, which is the crucial, interesting talking point of this, because they are the team in Formula One who have overspent, gone over the cost cap. They haven't capped their costs correctly. I'm trying to put it in as simple terms as possible, because there's going to be a lot of jargon thrown around in the next 10 minutes or so as we throw around random words. And so Red Bull have been found to be in a minor overspend, which means that they are then, there's a litany of penalties, but it's not a major overspend. It means it's under sort of $7 million, $7 million US dollars, about 5 million UK pounds for 2021, not for 2022, but that's a different podcast. And
this time next year, Red Bull gone over it again.
This time next year, there'll be a fantastic excuse, which will be Liz Truss. But anyway, like I say, it's a different podcast.
The Truss effect.
The Truss effect on F1 is genuinely an essay waiting to be written. And unfortunately, I probably would write it if I was still working in F1 journalism.
I'd do it for his final project at uni.
Yeah, Adam still got a dissertation.
I watched a really good video from HITC7s about what the UK's current financial predicament means for football. So I'd recommend that if you're interested in football and politics and the economy, because that was very interesting and in-depth and well thought out.
It may have transferable
skills
qualities to the Formula One world.
Yeah,
value. There we go. But anyway, returning to Formula One. After that, really interesting recommendation from Adam. That sounded like a dig. I actually genuinely found that interesting. I'm going to check it out, but I'm really sorry. But anyway, I've been trying to keep this buoyant and light, like I said, buoyant again, so we don't get down in arguments like Nigel said. But anyway, Nigel, what did you think about the overspend? What do you think about Red Bull's overspend?
Well, I thought I was being harsh, but then Adam thinks I'm not. So my opinion is, and it doesn't matter which team this is, they should be disqualified from the 2021 Constructors' Championship. Because it's Red Bull, they should get a huge fine, like in the, say, £100 million or something. Now, if it was a small team, it should be less, obviously, because you can't fine Haas 100 million. That would be stupid. But because it's Red Bull, 100 million or something. Reduction of the wind tunnel time as well. And that's what I'd do. I think it's that simple for me. I think that's a really harsh punishment. And,
as a blanket,
especially for minor overspend.
For being, so minorly, we don't know if it's $7 million. We don't know if it's $1 million. Blanket, whatever it is, whatever it's been spent on, whether it's marketing spend, whether it's can be proven that they just their budget for the car and for most of it didn't go over, and it was hypothetically something completely different. You still think?
I think because we've got a rule, so you've got to obey it. Basically, it doesn't matter if you're £1 over or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a rule there, and if you let them get away with it, that then other teams will just get away with it in the future. You got to be harsh because this is the first time we've had this situation, obviously, because last year was the first time we had the budget cap in proper effect. So the FIA have got to go big and punish them harshly, set a precedent so it won't happen again. So I think what I'm saying is pretty, punishing, I think.
Why does the fine change?
Because if you Haas, you cannot fine them 100 million.
So why should you fine Red Bull that? Is the disqualification from constructors and then in real terms returning of the prize money, the I don't know, something like 30 million odd prize money for finishing second in the constructors?
Yeah.
Is that not, and then wind tunnel, is that not fine enough? You want to put a huge fine on top of that, or is that?
I don't know. I just think. That's a good point. Maybe the disqualification just for the constructors is enough. Actually, maybe
disqualification constructors. For me, I think what's done is done for 2021. Let's be honest, and I do kind of subscribe to the kind of point of view. If there is necessity for a major punishment, that it be future based, that it be sort of in line with the kind of like a community service-esque kind of vibe for punishment, where you'll have wind tunnel time reduced, like you said, where you then have to sort of pay off a higher fine and things like that. Not like too much more, but you pay, say it's like 3 million, you pay 10 million, that kind of thing. And just that, that makes it not like it's a calculable risk then to take. Like you can't say, we just have to pay it back in the later years, because that is the risk with the budget cap penalty, that it can then be a strategic penalty.
Yeah, that's the thing, because then you might push more for one season, then take the hit in future seasons if it's kind of worth it. That's the only problem with that. I should say disqualification from the championship, that can't happen for a minor breach, by the way. That's just what I would do. You can only be reduced points. You can't be excluded, I think, for the rules. But
yeah, I think there is Adam, what's your personal Adam Dickinson line then, in the same way that Nigel just put forward his position?
I think I subscribe more to your future-facing approach. I think where me and Nigel disagreed earlier was his, him talking about the if they got disqualified with the constructors last year, and then they'd be in the shitter. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's not. I just don't think it changes that much, to be honest, about Red Bull and who they are now and going forward. So that was kind of my main disagreement with what Nigel said earlier in private. But yeah, could you have a reduction for the budget cap in future years for a team that goes over?
Totally. In real terms, that's what a fine would be in the long run.
In line. I think, as you say, reduction in reduction in wind tunnel time, great, and a fine coming out of the team's budget for future years. Obviously for this year it would have to be for 2023. It'd be quite difficult to enforce for 2022, but I think going forward that would be the way to do it.
I think the risk of getting bogged down in what Nigel's about to come in on just kind of the nuance of a Constructors' Championship meaning and disqualification and that kind of thing. To me and Nigel, we both think it would mean a bit more, and the reputation of the team is important in this kind of regard. And if you are legitimately disqualified from a Constructors' Championship, you are legitimately officially confirmed as having cheated, and that's a very serious offence. But you're also right in the long run, Adam, that down the line this kind of thing can be, if it's the day after 2021, then it would be way worse in the way that you look back to Schumacher being disqualified in 1997. That was done a month, not even a month or so after the championship had finished there, and he was second as well. But since then, he was able to kind of regroup and carry on. His sponsors stayed the same, and so on. There are different scenarios, such as Crashgate, which I think is one that's a really awkward one to bring up because obviously it was a deliberate crash, but the way it came out was similar in that it was a year and a bit on from the event, and then the reaction then became Renault essentially being given a delayed, forced removal as a works team from the sport, but the team can remain as Team Enstone, and various senior figures were given at the time a lifetime ban from Formula One for Pat Simmons and Flavio Briatore, which has been brought down, but and they lost sponsorship and so on. Fernando Alonso was already going, but things like that, and there's lots that it's the kind of scenario that I think every opinion is correct and every opinion is incorrect, because it's the kind of thing you just need to see play out in the court of public opinion, to be honest, to see what happens. Every route could happen, in my opinion.
When you say about the Constructors' Championship and how, I don't see how that being stripped kind of makes, if that's the punishment for cheating, then surely that's not the that's kind of a symptom of it rather than the root cause, which is if they get fined or if they get wind tunnel time reduced or whatever, then that's still punishment for cheating. So if they get disqualified from the Constructors' Championship,
that's a punishment as well, disqualification from the Constructors'
Championship. But what Freddie was saying is that makes it official that they've cheated. And in terms of long-term ramifications,
I wasn't implying that other things weren't cheating. What I was meaning with that is that it's such a black mark against a team's record that whole season then for eternity will be marked as pointless and a waste and essentially just dishonest. And a footnote on a fine on a say a Wikipedia article, you've got to go looking for. But if you have, say, a list of results and one of them is always disqualified, that's much more blatant.
The reason I've got my opinion is I'm basing it off 2007 Spygate, and McLaren were excluded from the championship, but Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso kept their points, finished second and third, in the end just missed out on the title, and they were given a big £100 million fine, which I think is still the record with the biggest fine in F1. That is basically what I'm taking that. I know it's completely different, but I'm using that and using it for this. That's how I've come to my view.
Yeah, and that's totally worthwhile of a opinion to develop and put towards it. Because to be honest, I think all of us would agree that Spygate at the time was massively overblown for what it was. In hindsight, in that, I mean, it was documents in possession in McLaren, but in the way it was I'm pretty sure they weren't necessarily used so much for the design of the cars, but it was a big deal.
That's my understanding of it as well. I think the issue is that kind of different punishments mean different things to different teams. If you take, if Williams had finished second in the Constructors' Championship last season and you take that away, and you take the money away that came from it,
it does make a difference.
It does to Williams.
As is right to mention, and is that the Red Bull sponsorship deals that they've got are way higher than the deals that Williams have. If Williams have got to pay back, let's say it is realistic position. Say it's Williams finishing ninth or something and paying it back. Say they're paying back 23 million or whatever they would pay back. I don't know and I'm not going to look it up now, but say they've got to pay that back. That's a significant chunk of everything they earn, and that's arguably more than a title sponsorship deal for them. And whereas Red Bull have got $300 million, is it, Adam, with Oracle? Yep. Over the course of 3 or 4 years, and over the course of 5 years. And, that means that by comparison to your bottom line, it's an entirely different percentage of just the money you have in the bank. So it becomes a different kind of ball game, but it is quantifiably a punishment.
I just think you've got to be harsh.
Yeah,
I think it's got to be mostly about the season where the rules were broken. I think.
Yeah. So I think an interesting point to raise about the FIA's statement today is that they've been very quick to, and very certain, not very certain, but sort of very nuanced in their language in a way that they want to make it quite obvious that this isn't a big deal. I think there's been a lot going around recently that sort of, even the stuff about $12 million breaches and things like that, and major breaches and so on and so forth. But and we've said it in this podcast, it could be realistically at the moment because we don't have the transparency there. We don't have the spreadsheets and whatnot. We don't saying that it's $7 million, that kind of thing. But it could realistically be a lot less. It could be, in the grand scheme, it could be 500 quid. Let's be honest. And the FIA are very clear to say that that everything's been done in good faith, and there's been a lot of cooperation throughout the process. So they're very quick to sort of say Red Bull are doing the right thing here. There's been a procedural breach and an overspend breach, but they've been doing the right thing. Everything's been going well, and the kind of just tone of it implies that there's not that they're trying to quieten it down a bit. And now, depending on your opinion of the FIA, and I think it's a legitimate perspective to have of this, that it could be them just trying to move the narrative on, but it also could be them trying to just say, okay, hold your horses a bit, guys, because you're getting overexcited. Where do you guys stand on that front? Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, it's difficult to know, obviously, what's genuine, what's happened, because even within the minor breach, I don't know if they're going to announce exactly what the breach is, but being 10 grand over compared to being $7 million over is obviously a huge difference. So, and again, like where it's gone, was there the quote about like catering service, or was that a spoof? I didn't.
That's a report.
It's a report from Dutch journalist Eric van Haren, who is a very respected Dutch journalist. But it's one report so far.
It's one report.
It's been taken up on social media more than on news.
Social media's called for Lewis Hamilton to win the title.
All right, Nigel, we know you've got a vendetta against everything.
Everything's a key word. What do you mean? I've just said Red Bull should be disqualified from the constructors, and that's not.
You didn't say Verstappen should be qualified from the drivers, did you?
Yeah, just like 2007 when.
Yeah, we're getting sidetracked by puerility. So yeah, I think it just really depends on where it is, and I think the issue is transparency. I don't feel like the FIA has maybe the good faith to, like you say, take them at their word that this isn't just PR. That's kind of where my issue is.
Yeah, I think
question marks are.
The problem is over the last few years, the Ferrari engine fuel saga from 2019, which affected the 2020 season, that being kind of put to one side just during pre-season testing or on the eve of pre-season. Was it
on the eve of the final day of pre-season testing at 6 o'clock at the exact end of the session when everyone was interviewing drivers? Yeah,
that along with my mind's just gone blank. What else? I don't know.
Well,
just
generic messes that have been kind of staple to Formula One, which we'll get onto when we're talking about the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, a lot of inconsistency. Abu Dhabi last year, obviously, just all of that. It does make it difficult. But equally, like Adam said last week when we was talking about this, the FIA can't win whatever they do. No matter if they go for the most extreme punishment or the lightest punishment, or somewhere in the middle. There's going to be 50% of the people are happy, 50% are not. But it's tricky. I do think they got to set a precedent. I think a harsh precedent.
I think a precedent does need to be set, particularly considering it's the first rule set, and the FIA are very kind of keen usually to be lenient on that kind of scenario if it's the first time it's been applied as a rule, if it's different and so on. But I think in this kind of instance, it's one that necessarily isn't necessarily the way forward. But one thing I would say, and Red Bull have obviously released a statement this evening saying that they believe they've complied, they're sticking to their guns on that. And I think that's a crucial point we should bring up as well. We can't take the FIA's word necessarily as gospel, because every steward's decision we seem to disagree with. So I do tend to fall on the line of, I think the teams tend to have a better understanding of the rules than the FIA do for the majority of the time. And I mean, we can name many examples where Red Bull, particularly last year, with the team radio to FIA, where Red Bull were reading the rule book to Michael Masi. Spa rings true when they put Sergio Perez back in the race and things like that. So it's not over till it's over, obviously. But I mean, I don't think Red Bull are guilty yet in my mind, basically.
Ooh, I didn't expect to hear that.
I didn't expect to
guilty.
Well, but that's the thing. But this is my point. It's my point. Like,
okay.
My point is, if there then needs to be a formal investigation, which means it's not then the Cox Cap administration, means it's kind of a wider group, I'm pretty sure, of an investigation, then I would be inclined to think that there's more. I would naturally, basically, if this was an odds game and you just say who's more likely to get rules correct and to understand them better, the FIA or Red Bull Racing as a Formula One team, I would say Red Bull Racing, and that's basically what I'm saying. So
yeah, I get that. I get that.
I'm really not surprised Red Bull are sticking to their guns. Kind of everyone involved in the upper echelons of that. It's I think a very proud team and a very proud group of people. So I'm not
rightly so
surprised that that's happening. But I think just where you were listening off what happened last season, I think it is, again, it's just a shame that last season and what was a titanic battle between two drivers is then all of this off track stuff is just, it's taking away for me what we enjoyed last season. And it's not, there's just not the same, there's such enjoyment on track, but then off track you've got Spa, you've got Abu Dhabi, and it's just a shame that kind of out of all seasons it was that one that was held up as this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not held up, but
in a way you could say that kind of made it in a way.
No, I don't think so.
I wouldn't. I
would say the clouds came over in Abu Dhabi, and the storm is arguably just starting. Yeah, mm-hmm. So it's a shame that this isn't ever going to really be resolved. There's a feeling.
That's the season that if you were wanting to convert anyone to F1, then you'd show them and you just say, watch this. And, there was such drama in it and, the absolute kind of everything you really want from a rivalry on track. And it's to then have that, as I said, subtracted from by the goings on is just, it's a real shame.
The quote from Josh Suttle, who works for the race, is that this just further sours what was an excellent season. And that it was the end of 2021 is so sour, but the whole thing was excellent. And I think we all agree with that. I think
it's still the final point for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think the final point to throw in on financial regulation, Ross Brawn said that these would have teeth. These regulations. He said what Nigel said about straight out just going, you're going to be thrown out basically. Now,
Ross Brawn, there we go.
Yeah, realistically is the only time sort of a mouthpiece from governing body perspective has been put towards this kind of breach. So, and we haven't seen Stefano Domenicali or anyone anywhere for ages because they've gone to ground. So,
not literally.
Do we think the FA are going to come out of this really badly or really well?
Oh, badly. Well, whatever they do badly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if they do throw the rule book at Red Bull, and I don't know about really badly. I think they'll come out. I think regardless of what happens, I think they'll come out of it worse than if it hadn't happened at all. But it's again like how they deal with it can have a huge impact. I do think if there's a pretty menial penalty, then I think that will really, really erode trust in them. I think if they do slap them with a harsh penalty, then it's not going to. I don't think for fans, it's really going to, whatever side you are on the Verstappen, not Verstappen, Hamilton side line, then you're going to find some issue with it. But I think in neutrals and journalists and people who maybe aren't as all in on one driver or team, then I think it can provide. I think the way they deal with it will go a long way to kind of showing whether they come out really badly or just a bit worse than when they came in.
Yeah, I think the explanation, if we get a statement, which hopefully we will, that's what will be key for me. If they explain it and explain it well, that should be okay. But if they explain it and there's things like, hang on, that doesn't make sense for that, like we've seen before with race incidents like Singapore, for example, with the Perez safety car thing. If we read it and we find points where it doesn't fully make sense or it's not consistent, that's where my problem will kind of come with it.
Moving from one controversial storyline to another, the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix. We were all looking forward to a return to Suzuka, and Suzuka definitely delivered in terms of storylines and cars looking cool on track. But it also delivered in storylines such as, we get to see how the new wet race rules are implemented, and oh no, a tractor on the track, very bad, genuinely very bad, and he's not the world champion. Oh, what? He is the world champion? No. What? Oh. So that is a brief emotional journey through the Japanese Grand Prix for you there. We're gonna touch on the most sort of landmark talking point, which is the World Championship. Max Verstappen is the 2022 World Champion. We're half an hour into this podcast now. We're talking about that. I mean, for goodness sake, what's going on?
I thought he was doing two different episodes.
The budget cap's going on.
Well, Nigel thought we were doing two different episodes, but we're not. We're doing one episode. We're doing a bumper episode. This is deluxe. This is jumbo.
This is a premium episode. You have to pay for it, except this will be free. That's why you're hearing this.
Exactly. But as part of this deluxe jumbo bumper Christmas edition episode, we're going to talk about Max Verstappen being 2022 World Champion. But the process to get him to 2022 World Champion was bumpy and disorganized and soaking wet. Nigel, in your most matter-of-fact and uncomplicated and simple way that I know you can do as an expert journalist, please take us from point A to point QT. What the fuck about how Max Verstappen became world champion?
I'm not going to do the whole season, or else that'll take about 10 days. I'll just
do
when he crossed the line.
Do more of a Japan.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry. So he crosses the line. I'm pretty sure no one's even thinking they won the world championship. Maybe even Jonathan Wheatley, maybe, because we saw him talking
we should mention that he won the race very well.
Yes, he won the race. Yeah, he dominated. But yeah, it was a great drive as well. But
phenomenal drive.
Basically, no one realised the key point in the FIA regulations, which said if the race doesn't resume, then a certain amount of points will be given 25, 50%, or 25%, 50%, or 75%.
Yeah.
But because it did resume after one lap and it finished with a checkered flag, 4 points were given because of that stupid little phrase, which will hopefully be changed.
So the crucial point is that the crucial point is that after Spa, rules were brought in to make it that 25% of the race, and to split the race essentially into quartiles if it's not going to make the full distance, so that 25% is worth a certain amount of points, 50% is worth a certain amount of points, 75% and 100%, and so on, into those 4 bands. And the belief was among everybody in the entire world that if the race isn't going to finish in the 3-hour clock window of the race running, which makes sense at the time in Japan by the fact that it was basically dark when it finished, is that, okay, we haven't got the 75% distance, but we have got past 50% distance, we'll give the third band of points. And that was just the belief that is the system. But no, that's only the system if a race cannot be restarted, and that's where it ends. And that's bonkers. But anyway, that's how it was. So that just means there's different point systems to Formula One.
Say they restart the race and they do 4 laps. That means they give out 4 points under this rule.
Yeah,
they just do 4 laps.
If they do Spa, if they do 2 laps behind the safety car, that will still be.
It has to be green flag, doesn't it?
Does it have to be green flag?
It has to be green flag now, I think crucially, but I'm not sure if. But if you did 3 laps, like Nigel says, if you can do a 6-lap race that then never is restarted, you can do a 6-lap race, do 3 and 3, and it's entirely different. So.
That's where my issue. Well, there's one of the many issues.
The correct issue.
It's just not like it just doesn't. I mean, it gave some excitement in the race because we thought, are they going to tick over half points? Are they going to get above this threshold?
It made it a championship decider, didn't it? It made it a championship decider for us.
But it's just daft. Like it's really daft, and I don't know whether it's been. I don't know. I don't know whether it was left in as a loophole or if it was left in as a just we didn't think of that.
Okay, I don't think I think the phrase loophole has been used a bit. I take umbrage with it being called a loophole. It's both of those, just a mistake. But individually, it's a hole in the regulations and it's bloody loopy. And it's just like it is by all manner of things. It is technically a loophole, but it's realistically it's a plot hole, and it's a gaping chasm in the regulations. That line was after there
Spa.
Prior to Spa. That line was there prior to Spa.
But
so that regulation has not been deleted in the right way.
But after Spa, where you have such a catastrophic farce, like it was just ridiculous. And do you not go through and check everything to make sure that there's not a loopy hole that isn't a loophole there? Like it just not. Seems, apparently it just seems gobsmacking that they would miss that.
Crucial, one of I've said the crucial thing many a time already in this segment, but one of the other crucial things to me that stands out is that the bands, the quarter system is a really, that's common sense. That's a really good way to deal with it. And the way they implemented common sense was with a sprinkling of idiocy. They just had to make it copyright FIA, didn't they? And I beggars belief sometimes that they're very brilliant people working at organization, and they come up implement this kind of thing really nicely and neatly, and we all think, oh, that's it's a good system, it's working really well, it's making this race make a lot of sense, it's meaning this sort of 25-26 lap race we're getting now kind of makes a lot of sense and it's really interesting and we're going to get a bit out of it. And then at the end of it just falls flat. It's like, oh okay, well, I thought we had it all kind of nailed there, and Leclerc getting a penalty wouldn't have done anything, but it turns out that then became the crucial factor because of Joe Guanyu's fastest lap.
What I didn't like was we didn't get that kind of iconic celebration on the team radio kind of thing, because I can remember pretty much every season for the last 15 years, the radio or the celebration, even when the championships.
What did Raikkonen
can you impersonate them?
Can I input? I'm not going to. I had 2 questions there. What did Raikkonen say?
Yeah.
His race engineer told him that he won it by 1 point, and I think we've won it by
my calculations.
Yeah,
it's 1 point to Hamilton.
What did Hamilton say in 2015?
We're not going through this.
2015.
It was USA.
2015.
USA 2015. I can't remember exactly what it, but the moment is there. I can see the image with the flag and that kind of thing.
I actually I think this is memorable. It's not for the right reason. It's not for the right reasons, but it is him being in the like post-race interview when he gets told, or like standing off to the side.
He should have the right to celebrate though properly. Like
he did get the right to celebrate. Look on the Red Bull content plume. There's a million photos of them celebrating. They look like they had a great time.
I think both points are right in that regard. You don't have to have a standoff on this one. Like, it's certainly nice to find out in immediately, and to come across the line and have that release and elation. That must be fantastic. We all heard the radio message in Abu Dhabi last year. That's just phenomenal joy and happiness. It does feel it becomes a bit flatter, but you're still world champion. You're still happy about that kind of thing. So both things are going to happen, but the rush of it isn't going to be there. And I feel a bit bad for Max Verstappen and Red Bull that they don't have that. But then again, I mean, if it's decided outside of the races and championships have been, that's the case. And it does make it memorable. You're right, Adam, and you're right, Nigel. It does make it also a bit flat, but
it embodied the race very well, I thought.
Well, I think Max Verstappen took it very well, and I think he's found it quite funny. And I think
it's the right driver to kind of happen to, because of his personality, he's very relaxed and that kind of thing. I know on team radio he has his antics, but certainly over the last few years, when it comes to like interviews or just talking to people, he keeps it very kind of neutral, is what he says. He doesn't get too positive or too negative, really. So it kind of worked out. It happened to him.
To the FIA's credit, this regulation was known by them, and if we look at the race coverage, on the on-screen graphics for the whole thing did have the full point. They didn't have the half-point system or anything at any point, and saying they said at this point Verstappen would be champion, and so on, with plus 25, plus 15, and so on. And crucially, the point with that, everyone thought it was wrong. We all thought the F1 graphics were wrong. The F1 Instagram thought it was wrong, which is quite funny. But I feel a bit bad for them, because they were in the same boat as us. Probably someone sat in a flat in London working from home trying to figure it out. And it's a shame that it's messy, but to be honest, that's trademark. But one thing that shouldn't be trademark, and is not something that should be worth having really a segue into, really, is everything that went on with the recovery of Carlos Sainz's crash car, which aquaplaned off the road on lap one, fairly obviously, completely just went. Nothing Carlos Sainz could do. And as the recovery was to bring a tractor crane right onto one of the fastest parts of the track in the wet, to pick up that car and move it off as quick as possible to get the racing underway again. Now, the majority of the cars were led past the tractor by the safety car at reduced speed, as is ordinary, in dry conditions when there's a tractor somewhere in the vicinity, but not normally on the track. But due to the nature of where this crash was, it was there. Pierre Gasly came past a bit of a quicker pace, because that is customary for people catching the safety car queue when they're released. When their delta is then turned off, they can then be released and to catch with the queue. And then there was a red flag, and he was going too fast, and he got given a penalty. But the main issue with this is that there was, in horrific, treacherous conditions, there was a tractor in an awful location trying to recover a car, and it rightly sparked memories of 2014, where a tractor recovering a car in a for want of a better phrase, a less of a firing line location, was hit by Jules Bianchi's car and subsequently injured him enough to cause him to die from his injuries in 2015. And this isn't on.
Yeah. I don't know what whoever made the call. No, the FIA are investigating. Whoever made a call to the crane or tractor, whatever you call it, they've got a lot of explaining to do, because it could have been a lot worse, quite frankly. And there was a marshal there as well. But what I will say is, I think Gasly is also partially at fault. I'm not going to say how much, but it's not like he's got a minor part to play in it, because I do think he was going too fast. And even if there was no crane or recovery vehicle there, Sainz's car still would have been there anyway. and if he hit it that, if he loses it, so I do think he was going too fast anyway. He was in fifth gear, I think, at that point. So
yeah, he was going too fast.
So I know he got the penalty after that, but still at that point in the track, he knew the instant was there. I mean, he had the advertising boarding for the lap before. He surely would have been told by his team that there was a car there. So even if you take away the crane tractor thing, side car still would have been there.
Well, this is the thing, like they're both in the wrong. And
exactly.
I think there's a theory somewhere in psychology and all of that and business workplace stuff. The thing you've got to allow for most is human error. So that's Gasly. And then but you've got to put that kind of in the safest possible environment. And by putting the tractor there that's not then being put in the safest possible environment. And like realistically from that side, it's the driver and the car's life comes first, and Marshall's working around the track, that all comes first, and the way you then work to get that comes second, and you've got to kind of make sure it's in a safe scenario. And the reason that it took such a long time to recover Daniel Ricciardo's car at Monza, meaning there wasn't safety car restarts, because where that car broke down meant they had to do a live snatch, had to get the tractor out there, and that was not on a part of the track that could conceivably be seen as a racing line firing off. That was quite a safe part of the track that was parked up, but they were approaching it with a lot of caution and making sure that cars were at other parts of the track to deal with it in the right way, and that just wasn't dealt with in this scenario.
I don't think cars should be going past a crane on track at all, to be honest. I think I understand that this incident is worse because of the conditions and where it was on the track, but I just think that shouldn't be a thing at all. But yeah, beyond that, I think I just echo what you said. It just brings back horrible memories of 8 years ago, and again, just inconceivable. It's like Nigel said, whoever called that, how can you make that decision and think, oh yeah, that'll be okay? I do not understand, but it's not.
Well, it's a panicked decision, isn't it? It is a completely panicked decision.
Yeah, it might have been the marshal, might have been the guy driving the thing, it might have been the FIA, it might be race control. That's what needs to be found out, really.
But if that's there in itself, then that is an issue. Like if there's not,
totally, yes.
Like that's not, it shouldn't be on, have several people. There should be someone who can be able to decide that and put that through, and their word is gospel on it. And if that's not the case, then that's, it makes the issue even bigger.
I think, there's a lot to be said about the fact that just because something's been done for a long time wrongly doesn't mean you should just try and make that right. You should just stop doing that because it's been being done wrong for ages. And this feels like that kind of situation, particularly in the wet. And even if you're going to keep having tractors or trucks going on track at points, which is without red flags being in every race, seems to be the only way sometimes, or just have very sort of convenient cranes off track, which is going to be impossible at the majority of tracks, then you're going to need to just have a much better way of addressing this, and to be honest, be more convenient. I mean, you can have a quick stop procedure and just have cars just line up behind the safety car on the grid, that kind of thing, and then go and return. You don't lose a lap. You don't lose, time with a red flag procedure and things like that so much. I mean, that's probably me being incredibly naive about how an F1 car works, but if that tractor which was going in there was, the impression was it was going to go in there, pick it up, go out quickly, and you could drive cars quite slowly around the track and let that, for this instant, you could probably do that in 3 minutes and make it a 3-minute safety car train to do that. And it's just a case of thinking about that and assessing the situation and seeing where that is. And I think, one thing that, is fairly good from the outcome of this is the outrage, if you will, to see that it will become more afterwards, hopefully, with more of a system afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Hamilton, going back to Adam's point, in the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Hamilton, there's Romain Grosjean crash, and they had a truck, and the safety car came out, and they were going about 20 miles an hour past it, and even Hamilton was calling for a red flag or why was the truck there kind of thing. So yeah, I absolutely agree with Adam. We shouldn't really have those cars going past those vehicles at all. I mean, it's happened in Formula E quite a lot as well, which is annoying. It's happened in F1, obviously. So just all motorsport, we should have these. You shouldn't have anything bigger than an F1 car and so heavy and on a track when there's cars going around, even if it is behind the safety car.
Briefly, we should touch on a few other things that have happened in the Japanese Grand Prix. The race did obviously get underway after a lengthy delay, which is the right decision for the delay and the right decision for the race to get underway. I think we just agree on that. But the race did allow for some good moments. There were some really good battles in there.
I think, obviously, putting aside the first lap and all of what happened with Gasly, I think it was a kind of enjoyable, nearly sprint race. Once it actually did get under racing conditions, then I did enjoy it. It was you just had bits and pieces going on all over the field. You had a drying track, and Vettel making the decision and having a good race, and Latifi going with him.
Doing the same,
and Leclerc and Perez battling at the end, Hamilton and Ocon for quite a long time.
It was a mesmerising battle, that, in my opinion, the Hamilton-Ocon battle, to be honest. Yeah. And I was hugely impressed with Ocon. I think
Russell's overtakes through the field as well. Russell was doing some great moves. So, yeah, I think it was one of the better races of the season, I think.
One of the better wet races of the season.
It was proper pure racing, no DRS on an old school track. So you've got to be brave, you've got to be bold. If you make a tiny mistake, you can spin off, that kind of thing. Yet pretty much everyone for the restart kept it on the track. And the decision from Vettel and Latifi to pitch straight away, which is what I said they should do my work slack, paid off completely because he undercut half a dozen cars and got points. And especially for Latifi, in his final season, it now means every driver has scored points this season, which is amazing.
I think crucially for Latifi,
did a great job.
On Latifi, the rest of it wasn't just a gamble that went well either. I mean, there was luck involved, but the drive around that was really good.
Yeah.
The way he was matching the pace, there were points where Norris wasn't able to keep up with him. And that's impressive. It was actually genuinely a really impressive drive from him. And similarly,
career.
Yeah,
in Hungary though as well. In wet conditions in Hungary as well. And another driver, I think
he was good in the wet.
Yeah, and kind of on that track, I think this was Vettel's best race weekend since at least Turkey 2020, another wet race.
Back in 2021.
I think this was better. No, sorry, I was thinking of Baku 2022. I mean, to be fair, it's still debatable, but...
Well, Baku 2021, I mean, if we're going to debate, was where he basically did an overcut on 6 or 7 cars. So I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, that was
in
good.
The dry.
Making Q3 this weekend was impressive as well.
It was impressive. There are a lot of just good drives that really stood out. And I think, Nigel, your point about everyone staying pretty clean in the restart and then keeping it on the island for the next half an hour, 40 minutes. Excellent stuff. I mean, those are hard conditions to drive in, and they drove very well. Very well. I think you had Zhou Guanyu's spin on lap 1. You had, obviously, Carlos Sainz's crash. And you had Alex Albon pulling over with a retirement, not with lack of skill from driving. And that's kind of it on that front, to be honest. Leclerc obviously went wide at the final corner and earned himself a penalty for essentially for the way that he rejoined and then nearly put Perez in the gravel.
Was that penalty right? 5 seconds?
Yeah.
I think we all saw it at the time and probably thought, it's a 5-second penalty. He's gone off.
Didn't know it would affect the championship, no, did we?
No, we didn't. But it did.
I mean, those two going into the first corner, that was fantastic. I thought Leclerc got it, and then going full guns blazing, Verstappen hanging it around the outside, Leclerc keeping it on the inside without causing a collision. It was in absolute soaking conditions
brilliant
on
driving.
Inters. That was fantastic. I mean, like we said with Latifi and Vettel, you do just get, in wet conditions, you get standout moments from people that you maybe wouldn't expect. When we Stroll on the first lap from his start, really, really ballsy
really
move.
clever,
inside
really
to the
clever.
pit wall.
Really clever.
Yeah, just
and
that was fantastic.
We've obviously, I think we're running a bit tight for time. We've obviously had a lot of this podcast has been, a bit meh about things, but we've ended on the core of F1 being very good, the racing being good, the drivers being good, and all of that. So on a positive note, it's a good place to wrap it up and kind of think about F1 for the future. The track action's good. The off track is what we talk about, but the track action is seen from Suzuka this weekend was pretty healthy. We do have obviously more to talk about from F1 at this weekend. We've obviously got Gasly's announcement. There's loads going on that side. Ricardo's basically said it looks like he's not going to be here and things like that. We'll get onto that in the future because we're running tight for time. But that basically then means that it brings to an end our cost cap Japanese Formula One Grand Prix review.
Well, it's not been a cap
special.
on the podcast, has it?
It's not a cap on the podcast.
This is a cap on this podcast.
Budget podcast.
There's a cap on the episode. We're capping the episode here.
I feel like as a podcast, we are quite a budget podcast. We don't overspend on too much. Beyond man hours, it's not.
Yeah. We don't overspend on catering, that's for sure. I've got a bottle of water here, and you guys don't have anything.
I've got a glass with nothing in it.
And I just got a mug. And he's got somewhere to hold his tea.
Don't
try and spit on your laptop. Don't try and spit on your laptop. You don't want to spill it on your laptop. What are you doing?
What could possibly go wrong?
I can't see it though, Nigel. You're going to have to tip it a bit more.
Bright.
Yeah, it's too bright.
It's bright.
What is it? Milk?
Turn it upside down.
Turn it upside down? Like this?
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Just see like every second.
Well, we've lost
decide what it is as it comes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we will be back in the future. You can find more from us.
Hopefully. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Guys, I'm trying to wrap up the episode.
Yes, we will.
We might not be then.
We will be back. We will be back in the past.
No, if we're not,
we are in the past. To be fair,
you're stuck in the past.
If we're not going to be back, you'll find out on our social channels at Winging It F1 on Twitter, at Freddie. No, that's wrong.
Dot.
Bloody hell.
That's a different one.
Yeah.
That's
Freddie Dot.
Freddie's private.
Please, I don't have a Tinder username. I just have an account. At FredCoats1999 on Twitter, at Adam Dickinson01 and at Nigel C. Journo. You can find us all there where we talk with our dry wit and people don't get our jokes. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to us. Please leave a nice review if you can on your chosen platform. Please share us, tell your friends, do all of that jazz because we're doing it for the validation. We don't like F1, as you can probably tell from this podcast.
We love it.
Yes, we love it. Look, classic Simon Cowell line. But we'll see you in the week off before the US Grand Prix, and we'll see you for the US Grand Prix in Austin in 2 weeks' time. So all that's left to say is thank you for listening and watching. Goodbye.
Bye.
Listening and watching.